Hi, I'm Kit, and this is my Meet the Alters video. As you can see from my picture, I'm a mostly black fox. When I was younger, I was a solid black, like baby fox, like a much smaller fox. My name, Kit, actually pretty much means baby fox. Primal Pack helped me choose it. I'm 19, but that's pretty recent still, because I woke up from dormancy and then aged a lot. I was around 4 to 6 before, but I was older than my age in a lot of ways, if that makes sense. I had been that age for a long time, so I had a lot more experiences than the average person that age. And I had a lot more responsibility than would typically be okay for someone of that age too. But I had been dormant for several months, and then I woke up a few months ago now, pretty soon before school started back up. This is the first video now for the semester, outside of live streams, that we didn't film in advance. So when I say a few months ago, I mean actually a few months ago, not a few months before filming it. And like, you don't need to add a couple months on. Basically, when I woke up from dormancy, there had been a lot of system changes, more than I would have expected. And the two that I think hit me the hardest were Niana and Nadia fusing into Naya, and Kitty fusing with Jade. Because Niana was a caretaker in my subsystem, and I was a little in my subsystem, so I spent a lot of time with her. But as you'll know if you've seen the video we made on parenting, I'm one of Jade's cubs. She's my mom. And I didn't always think of her as my mom, but I do now. And Kitty was my sister. And she was my first sister, which I think we talked about some in that parenting video, but age and things like that, in terms of comparing each other's ages, can get a little complicated because, for example, I was one of the younger cubs, but I had also been around longer than any of the other ones. So, like, in that way, Kitty was around the second longest. So I had known her the longest. We had spent the most time together. I was one of the earliest splits in the dark core subsystem, and that has to do with what my job used to be and still is to some extent, but not as much as I used to. But I process a lot of emotions for the dark core subsystem, so this used to be very trauma focused because that's what our subsystem's job was as a whole. And my part of that job was to hold on to the feelings while protectors were in the middle of doing their job. So I would keep those feelings from them and feel them myself until they were done with their job for that instance of trauma. And then I would, as slowly as I could manage, give them those feelings back to process together. Which was part of why I was one of the earliest splits. Because we needed to be able to do that very early. And we had an unhealthy association between emotions and like being childish, I guess. Which I think the fact that I'm 19 now shows that we're making some progress in that area, but I was a kid, but in some ways I was taking care of the adults and the teenagers around me. And I kept secret for a very long time that I was actually feeling the feelings that I held from them. And I essentially let most of the rest of the subsystem believe that I could keep their feelings separate from them without it negatively affecting me. Snake actually saw through it very quickly and was the first and the only one for a long time in the subsystem to, I could say ask, but it was closer to telling. The first to tell me not to take their emotions. And I thought it was a form of stubbornness at the time. Or even that maybe her job was different enough that she needed more access to her emotions when she was doing her job. And both of those things still might have been part of it, but I think she was protecting me because I think she realized what I was actually doing. And wasn't comfortable putting that burden on me. I'm working on sharing that responsibility a little more now, and not taking all of the feelings or anywhere close to all of them, except like in extreme cases, but I still try to soften them sometimes if I can, like during flashbacks and that type of thing, for instance. But there are still cases where it's important enough for us to function through, like a flashback or a breakdown, that I still do that job somewhat. But on top of that, and being like an emotional trauma holder too, because I keep the memories of the emotions that I held, and for a lot of the things I have a general idea of what was going on. But on top of that, because Niana fused and isn't a part of the subsystem anymore, we also needed a caretaker, and I have, in a way, been an emotional caretaker for a long time anyway, and especially now that I'm a little older. I guess more than a little older. I'm one of the better fits, I guess, for that role in the subsystem. And I'm not the only one who does any caretaking for the subsystem, but I am like one of the main caretakers. But my mom does a lot of it too. Jade does a lot of it too. Knox does some of it. There are several people who could help out in a pinch, but don't do it as regularly. It's still hard for me to call Jade Mom sometimes. Because we didn't have the same type of relationship for a long time that she had with the other cubs. Because our relationship started out more like partners. Partners in like a business sense, almost. Like we were working together with the same goals and against the same trauma. We were co-workers, basically. And I also had a huge secret from her that I knew she wouldn't like, and she knows now. But especially because I knew she would be mad, but it wouldn't be at me. She would be mad at herself for not realizing, or for not considering the possibility. And from, like, benefiting from my pain, I guess. But my job wasn't harder than hers. There's not really a fair comparison between our two jobs. And we're doing better at not minimizing, like, the impact of emotions. And how hard something can be, even if it's just feelings. But it essentially boils down to neither of us could have done the other's job. And neither of us could have done all of it without splitting it up like that, if that makes sense. So we don't really have a traditional parent-child relationship because of that. And I didn't think of her as my mom for a long time. I eventually, as she started having more cubs, essentially, I asked if I could be considered one of them. I think those were the main points. Gosh, it's been a minute since we filmed. If you have any comments or questions or anything like that for me or for us generally, you can put that in the comments of the video, or you can come over to our Discord server, which is linked in the description, along with our Etsy shop, which we have new things on there. And what else is down there? Oh, our Patreon. And I think we have a donations link on there too. And we do a lot of fun stuff on Patreon. We have different tiers that have different fun rewards. Or perks, I guess, I think is what they're called. Please like the video if you liked it, and subscribe and ring the bell to make sure you don't miss any of our future videos. And if you have missed any of the past ones, feel free to go back and rewatch those. Or I guess it wouldn't be rewatching if you missed them, but you know what I mean. I think that's it for end screen things. So, thank you for watching. Bye.